welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to do lab 6-2, perform substantive test of account balances. So in order to complete this lab, you will need the lab 6-2 slate aging sept file. Mine should be in my download, so I'm just going to go ahead and open that document. And so with this data, we're going to address the question of computing the accounts receivable for each customer. That is as of September 30th, 2019, hence the name of the file September. And we will find out how many customers have yet to pay the amount they owe. So after you've opened your file, I like to click on A1, Insert, Pivot Table. You're going to select Sales Order and select Add this data to the data model. By doing so, we'll be able to retrieve fields from both of the tables, that is sales order and cash received. And then we're going to hit OK. When you hit OK, it's going to automatically populate a new sheet like such. And in this new sheet, we're going to select, you're going to select all, and you'll see that once again, both of your worksheets show up there. You're going to click the carets for each one to see all fields. For the first one, you're going to select receipt amount. And for the second one, we're going to move sales order ID, I think I've already passed, to rows. I'm actually going to select auto detect here so that the tables can auto detect relationships. Should take a couple seconds. Load that out. I'm going to move it to values as well. And you'll see that it automatically populates this values in columns. So this is your data. And so after you've created the relationship, the top few records of your pivot table should look something like this. Okay, so I'm actually going to, I realized that my middle column here should actually be sum of sales order total. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this field. And I'm going to add in sales order total. And now I have sum of sales order total and sum of receipt amount. So you'll see here that now your data should look something like this. And we can move on. So now we're going to copy the data in the pivot table to a new spreadsheet in order to convert the pivot table data to a range. This will help us identify which of the invoices have not been paid in full. So in order to do that, I'm going to do Control Shift, down arrow, right arrow, Control C. Actually, since we're not going to need the grand total, what I'm going to do is come down to the bottom of my table here and just go ahead and delete the grand total. Okay, that's okay. Basically, we just don't need the grand total. So I'm going to do, once again, Control Shift down, Control Shift over, Control C, Control V, and highlight this, make sure that it fits, and then I'm going to come down and delete this row. I'm just going to hit Control Z here to back it up, and I'm going to paste it as values. Like such. Okay, so now I'm just going to format my new data as a table. Control C, Control over, and format as, once again, I'm going to do green black. We're doing a little snazzy today. And so I'm going to add in a new column. And we're going to calculate the difference. So I'm just going to set that up here. Difference. There we go. Okay, so in order to calculate the difference, I'm going to go ahead and do equal here. And I'm going to do the sum of sales order total minus the sum of receipt amount. Click enter, and you'll see that it auto-populates. And so kind of diving into step 10 here, we're going to add a filter to the difference column and filter out all the values that appear as 0. This will allow us to view all of the invoices that haven't been paid in full yet. So since I've already created a table, I'm just going to hit this caret, unselect the 0, and then hit OK. So now this is all of our values that have a remaining balance. So now after having your balance owed, that's an important piece of information, and it can be this data can be more interesting by identifying how late the payments are. So in order to identify that, we'll return to the cash received worksheet, and we're going to add in a new column, and I'm going to name it sales underscore order underscore date. Like such. I'm just going to highlight this, control, double click, and then we'll space it out. Okay, and so in order to calculate the date, we're going to do insert VLOOKUP. The lookup value is going to be, actually, I'm just going to type this formula in and explain later. It's easier for me to do it that way. So give me 1 second. So now that I have it typed in, I will see here that my lookup table is going to be the sales order ID. You'll see that this FK stands for foreign key, meaning that it's a primary key for another table. Table array is going to be sales order. Call the index number is going to be 2. And in this case, I'm actually going to do false because we want it to be an exact match for the range lookup. So just like that. Oh, I forgot to take it. Enter. Why? Okay. Anyways, you can just type in the word. It's okay. There we go. Like such. So keeping in mind that the information we want from this is a date. This is necessarily not helpful. So in order to make that a little bit more helpful, we're going to change the formatting to be short date, like such. And now this is a lot more helpful. Okay, so moving on to step 14. Now that we have the sales order date, we're going to create another column to calculate the difference between the dates. And we're going to label this age. Yep, like such. Sorry, good. And then we're going to create a formula that subtracts the cash receipt date from the sales order date. So this minus this. There we go. So actually, to get rid of these negatives, I'm going to change it up a little. So I'm just going to do sales order date minus the cash receipt date. Let's try that again. Sales order date minus cash receipt date. There we go. We're just wanting to get rid of the negative there. So cash receipt date minus the sales order date. And I'm gonna go ahead and format this as a number, like such. It's just gonna put some decimals there. And I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of those decimals. Oh, select. Get rid of the decimals. Okay, so in step 15, we're going to create a true VLOOKUP formula to assign each cash receipt on an aging bucket. So first, we're going to create an aging table. And by doing so, I'm just going to put in a couple of, so for example, it's like 0, 30, 60, and 90. I'll complete this table and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and created my table. I've added some borders and I've gone ahead and centered it. And so now we're going to create another column. And we're going to name it cash. Oh, sorry, we're going to name it bucket. Yes, bucket. Once again, space that out. And here we're going to create a true VLOOKUP formula to identify the bucket for each invoice based off this little table we've just created. Okay, so I've gone ahead and added in my formula, and all we're saying here is that the VLOOKUP value is going to be the age coming from column G here. My table array is going to be this new, what do we call it? I guess my bucket list we just made right here. We're specifying that 0 is 0 to 30, 30 is from 31 to 60, and these are days, of course. 60 is from 61 to 90, and anything above 90 is 90 and above. Column index number is going to be 2, and we want approximate values, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, approximate matches. Like such. And then you'll see that it like kind of self-categorizes itself based off of the days that have passed. Okay, so what we want to do next is create a summary of how many invoices fall into each bucket. This can easily be done by using the COUNTIF function. So what we're going to do is just to my little aging table, I'm going to add a new column, and I'm going to label it count. And we're going to use a COUNTIF formula here. So allow me to put in my formula and I'll be right back to explain it. Okay, so in order for my formula, what I've done is I've selected the range to be the bucket column, which is of the cash received table, we're only going to use the bucket column. And my criteria is going to be 0 to 30. So I'm going to hit OK. Sorry, press enter. And you can easily drag this down and it will auto-populate by changing each row accordingly to the criteria next to it, like such. Okay. Okay, so I've gone ahead and placed borders around my counts, just to kind of distinguish that. Anyways, moving on to step 20, we're going to return to our pivot table. For me, that's sheet 1. And make sure that you're clicking inside of your pivot table, and you'll see that right here, you notice how there's nothing else. If you click inside of your pivot table, you should now see the tab named Analyze. So we're in Analyze, we're going to refresh our data. Once our data has refreshed, we should be able to see the buckets inside of cash received. So just hit the caret and see bucket here. Yep. Okay, so I'm actually going to move the bucket field into the rows. I'm going to go ahead and select auto detect for now. Okay, close. Make sure that I'm open selected. And I'm going to remove the sum of sales order total in the field. Okay, so now you'll see that each of the, I guess, fields is kind of expanded here. So what we're going to do is collapse each of them. There we go. And that way we don't see that the detail of each invoice within the buckets, but only the totals. The top two records, actually the total 4 records will show up like this. Okay, so now I'm just going to save my hit save, or you can save it, whichever you prefer. And okay, and just from previous knowledge, we know that the most, I guess, of the balances not yet collected, the bucket which is least likely to be collected will be the 90 days, 90 plus days, and the bucket that would most likely be collected is the 0 to 30. Regardless of the amounts, it's just sometimes their accounting policies or their payout dates kind of affect the payment dates for us. So, okay, and this will bring us to the end of Lab 6-2 using the September file. Thanks for watching.